I did a clip recently of talking about Kevin Smith's mental break that he had and some of the weed stuff. And
I watched that, yeah.
That's been kind of interesting too. Is like I'm starting to express some of my like more controversial opinions. Like I think maybe like weed has gotten too good of a rap as an example, and that people bite back when you say that shit. Don't come for their weed.
I'm not going to argue with that at all with you. I'm a weed smoker, obviously, but but I do not let it affect me in a way that I think it can affect other people. Or well, it's not that I don't let it; it just doesn't seem to affect me that way. And I kind of like look at it like some people can handle their alcohol, some people can't. Some people can handle their drugs, some people can't. And if you can't handle it, or if it is affecting you in a way you shouldn't, then you should probably stay away from it. You know what I mean? But I also think that you shouldn't do it in times when you're expected to be on as well. You know what I mean? Like, or when you're creating something like a movie, you shouldn't go to film school blazed. You shouldn't go to the film set blazed. You know what I mean? And I think that's where a lot of people have that sort of like problem balance, you know, with their balance. You know what I mean? And I think that sounds like what Kevin Smith had was a problem with balance. You know,
I don't begrudge people their vices or their outlets. We all have them. Yep. It's akin to video games. It's akin to, name your thing. I do think alcohol is far more harmful than anybody cares to admit.
Yep.
Because there's kind of like a mass delusion thing that can happen where everybody's doing it so habitually that nobody's going to call anybody out on it.
Yep.
And so everybody is like, oh yeah, I know about those alcoholics, but I'm not one. And nobody wants to investigate that because that would be being a narc, or that would be being judgmental, or it would be calling yourself out because like, oh shit, I do have 3 drinks a night, but I think I'm okay with 3 drinks a night, and then like you quickly so it's like a society of rationalizing. Yep. And I think that like, I'll tell you, when I put up that clip, there were tons of comments from people who were like, you know what, man, like I'm thinking maybe I'm smoking too much weed. I think, I go to it too often. I leap to it, and I like to think that I don't need it to manage my anxiety, but apparently I do, because, I normally smoke in these circumstances when I have to meet my family or whatever. And I can't imagine doing it without it. And so clearly I have a problem. So I don't know. I worry that we underplay this stuff to cover our own asses. And so I don't know. I think it's fun. It's been fun for me to try to build a little bit of courage to say something unpopular.
That's why I respect you, man, is because you say what you want to say. You say how you feel. You don't sugarcoat it for people. And I think that's really important when you're trying to build up a relationship with the audience you're with, is to not bullshit them on what your feelings are. You know what I mean? People want to hear your thoughts. They don't want to hear what you think they want to hear. You know what I mean? So
yeah, well said. I was thinking about this just the other day. I was like, because like the childish or immature approach to something like a YouTube would be, I want to be seen by as many people as possible, and I want them all to think I'm cool. Like that's kind of like I think how a child approaches it. And assuming that you're not going to be able to make it your full-time job, why would you continue to have a creative outlet or to express yourself on a platform like this? And for me, it's like the answer is pretty obvious. It's a connect with people who I want to connect with, and exactly. I'm not going to be successful at that if I'm not as much myself as possible. It's also, by the way, it ain't bad for business, because I think what people are seeking out on YouTube is authenticity as much as possible. Because you can run into a whole lot of bullshit on YouTube, and a whole lot of like people chasing the algorithm or riding trends, or oh shit, the Sonic movie's coming out, so we better do a Sonic AVGN or whatever. Like there's a lot of that you're watching. So watching some dude from Massachusetts be like, I don't like weed. I think even if you love weed, I think it's a little bit like it's like a little bit of a glitch in the matrix, hopefully. And
it's different here in Australia too, because we still haven't got the freedoms of it that you guys have over in a lot of states in America. Where it is you can go to a dispensary, you can go do this. Yes, it's slowly coming in that way, but it is all medicinal, and you have to have a thing from your doctor and all that. If otherwise, you you're not supposed to have it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we don't know how long that's going to be till that changes, or if it does change. But I think our government's a lot more weary about, like, hey, once we open this Pandora's box, we cannot shut this box. So we better be careful, you know?
Funnily, with that, there's one place where you can get it, and that's Canberra, which also is where all the politicians are, which is, I wonder if there's a correlation there.
I had that, you might know, I had this gigantic weight loss a couple of years ago.
I do know. Yes, I followed it a fair bit. Yeah.
Yeah, my addiction was food, and it was a major area of suffering, I think, in my life, where, and one that I think a lot of people relate to, which was, you know, this kind of this comfort eating and lack of exercise and being too busy. And a lot of it was like I had a long commute and I was too busy, and it's you just keep taking these gambles with your health every time you make a bad food decision. And I heard Steve-O, of all people, you know, Steve-O has a lot of wisdom these days about.
He definitely does. He definitely does.
And he said, like, beating addiction, one of the things that's cool about beating that particular disease is you can become, like, most of the time, like if you have cancer and you beat cancer, you're kind of just like back to your baseline health. And he's like, but beating addiction, like you actually transform into maybe a person that's better than the person from before the addiction. Yeah. So there was a time when I actually carried the period of time where I was really big. I carried it kind of shamefully. Like, there's a lot of video of me like that, and there's a lot of people that discover me and are like, "Oh wow, you were really fat," you know. And I for a little while I was kind of like embarrassed by it. I was like, "Is there any way I can digitally defat myself?" You know, or something. So that the backlog, but you realize you're like, in some ways, going through an adversity like that and then coming out better on the other end. It really does. It's the kind of the Christian notion of, like, the suffering is sanctifying. You know, it's a little bit sick, but I think there's something to it.
Well, I do want to congratulate you on that, because that is you did a huge. You put in a lot of effort and you lost a huge amount of weight. When you look at, you know, where you were back then and where you are now, it is a huge difference. You know what I mean? And, like, when I saw that, because I did discover you while you were skinny, yeah? And then I heard about your weight loss and went back and looked at the videos, and I was like, man, that's a complete difference. You know what I mean? So, congratulations on that, man. I'm very happy that you stuck to that. I'm very happy that you stuck to, like, being that, you know, you wanted it that bad that you stuck to it. You know what I mean? Because there are people out there that want it, but it seems like that they can't want it enough because they're not putting in that effort. You know what I mean?
So true. Yeah, so, no, I often think of it in terms of, like, that's just it. Is Arnold Schwarzenegger, of all people, he was like, and there's a whole, I put together a weight loss video. This is kind of like half hour that does a deep dive into the whole thing. And I tell you, of all the, like, yes, I hear about James Rolfe stuff a lot. Second to that, I hear about weight loss stuff a lot. A lot of people come to me and they're like, I saw your weight loss video. It was a kick in the ass for me, and I really like a lot of what you said. But anyway, Arnold said something like, he's like, you know, as long as I have a goal, I'm happy to be in the gym because everything I'm doing is toward the goal. And so he's saying, like, because I've already made my mind up that this is what I want, then all effort pointed in that direction is actually satisfying and actually fun, and really it doesn't require the level of kind of like mental effort to get it done. So what that means is that all of the psychological effort is front loaded into that kind of that moment that you make your decision. And I've heard from other people, I've talked to a lot of other people who have lost a lot of weight, and they say the same thing. They're always like, I had enough. And when I had enough, everything changed. Drug addicts talk like this too, actually.
I can speak about that, actually. I can speak from that. I was a massive meth addict for 6 years straight. And then maybe longer every day. I used every day, and it destroyed me mentally. It took my son away from me. It took my whole life away from me, you know, and I had to become a better person. And now I finally have my son. I finally have, you know, a lot more positive outlook, you know, and yeah, I have not once, like, gone back to it. You know what I mean?
Was there some moment where you were like, I've had enough?
Yep. I looked at myself in the mirror one day and just thought to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, this is I'm wasting my money. I'm wasting my life. I'm not progressing. My house is trashed. You know what I mean? Like, it just makes you only care about that one thing, which is meth. You know what I mean? You care about nothing else.
Yeah.
Everyone else can go get fucked. That's basically what it is, you know? And now I feel like I have myself a lot more like caring about other people and wanting to get involved in a lot more than I did, rather than just sit in my room or go to the casino and sit in my car and smoke pipes till I could get to inside. And everyone would be like, "You coming inside?" And I'd be like, 3 hours later, I'm like, "Yep, in a minute." You know what I mean? Like, it controlled me, you know? So
I don't have any experience with that, but my guess would be that when you said I've had enough, it was more than just saying I'm going to put down something bad. It's kind of like saying I'm going to decide to live.
Yep.
Because continuing, you would have died probably.
Yep. Probably.
And so you actually were saying like, no, I choose life.
Yep.
And choosing life means a lot more than just like bumbling along to the finish line. Choosing life means like, what the fuck is life? And why should it matter? Why? Because you decided it matters. Of course, your son is a major element of that life, but it also sounds like you're like, I want to get involved in things that are creative. I want to create. I don't want to destroy. I want to.
I was in a band at the time, and I lost the band too because of it. You know what I mean? And my band, that band was everything to me. So the band that's launching now, coming up next week, is the first time I'll be launching a band since 2014, which was when I had my meth addiction. So it's been a long time, and I'm very nervous about it, but I'm very excited about it.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you kicked that. Good for you, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Never go backwards.
No, I never will, man, because I know that I'm always going to be an addict. I'm always going to be a meth addict, you know, and I've got to stay away from that because it wouldn't take me long to get back into the swing of things. You know what I mean? So
chemical wants from you, you know. Right?
That's a problem with Australia, man. We're saturated in methamphetamine at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big problem. It's a huge, huge problem. I mean, Alan can testify to that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Whatever. In the States, it's really the middle of our country has a big problem with it.
Yeah, is that places like Ohio and things like that?
Yep. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, less so on the coasts for some reason. Maybe it's because we income is different or something. I don't know, but it's meth is a really big problem in the middle of the country. Yeah,
I think it's a big problem worldwide, but it's just it's like it's becoming more prevalent every day. You know, so
yeah, I hear people talk about it. And you know what? What's interesting about meth is, again, I'm so stupid when it comes to it, but I meet people who are like, hey, I'm a recovering meth addict, and I'm like, I would not have guessed, because you think of like the profile of a meth addict is maybe like has like teeth problems, or a crack addict you can spot, right? But for some reason, like I'm like, wow, really? You were addicted to meth? And they're like, yeah.
Well, I have huge teeth problems, and that's one thing that I've got to obviously save and fix. But like, you know, it's a very expensive thing to get your teeth fixed. You know what I mean? And it's one of the things that I have the most problem with my confidence with. You know, it's like destroyed my confidence completely with my teeth problems and things like that. But meth really, it's a killer of a drug, man. It's probably one of, if not the worst, one of the worst. You know what I mean?
What's interesting about so I'm on the other side of my addiction, but I've still got like this noose around my neck a little bit from when I was making bad decisions. Like the same thing with being fat. Like, so I mentioned, you know, kind of a little bit of the shame of like the old videos. I remember when John, bless him, he gained all of his weight back, but he had lost a lot of his weight. And he had all this excess skin, and it was just kind of like excess skin for people who lose a lot of weight is kind of like it's like a cross for us to bear. I don't know, like there's at a certain point you kind of like, you kind of have to embrace it as a totem of overcoming